a net of ideas as possible. And so it might throw things off. If our advice is a little bit basic, please let us know. And so.
Just to let you all know, we are recording. So if you don't want to be recorded, you might not want to share your name or come on screen. You might just want to be passive, but we just started recording this. And so with that in mind, this is the title of the show or the presentation or the workshop, Teaching Test Taking. So Nick just alluded to some of our background. We do both teach together. We both work together and we both live near each other. So we communicate quite a bit about a lot of things, but in particular, the TOEFL course that we've been teaching. I've been teaching for a year and a half, and Nick's joined onto this course in April. So I consider myself not very experienced at all with test teaching to the test. So I'm new to it. So I'm hoping some people in this group today will have some experience to share with us. And as far as background for me, I teach at Oberlin University in Machida City in Tokyo. And it's there where I teach the TOEFL course.
Okay. For my background, and one of the reasons why I might be a little bit more versed than David in regards to tests. So I'm in my second year of my second stint at Oberlin, but I taught at Oberlin 4 years 4 years ago. And then I moved back to Sapporo for a year to set up a school, which didn't work out. But one of the focuses of the school that I was setting up was trying to attract students based on the now defunct changes that Monbusho was going to make on the entrance tests. So as you might know, Monbusho had a plan to change, end the center test by 2020 and to replace it with a series of private tests, including TOEFL, ACAN, GTEC, TEEP, so there's a collection of tests. And while I was setting up the school, I had looked up, like done the research to try to figure out what each test did in particular. So that's where my background comes. It is my 6th month teaching reading, writing to TOEFL students at Oberlin. And of course, I have nothing to compare online teaching to because I've never taught this class in an offline, in a face-to-face situation. And one of the reasons why we're kind of doing a holding pattern here of talking is just trying to get as many of you in as possible before we set out the survey. We've got just a quick question to double check who is teaching what tests so that we can get, we can make breakout rooms just a little bit more relevant to each other, making sure that we don't have TOEFL people talking to ACAN people where ACAN could be talking to other ACAN people and getting better ideas.
So do you want us to put these sort of experiences in the chat?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to send out a Google form. And then, so one of the things that we're going to be talking today about is something that I have done extensively, which is transferring. And so it's not going to take that much time. So, but how to transfer over textbook material onto a Google form very quickly, particularly if your students have a Google form, and just ways to use that. And one of the ways I kind of thought that we could use it is to actually have you fill out a form and show how to manipulate the information after you get it.
So with that in mind, it's probably not a bad time to start that, Nick.
Okay, then let me get
I'll open up so people can see what it looks like.
Yep, there we go.
This is what
So yeah, just fill it out.
Sample test, sorry.
Oops, that's the sample test. Sorry, that's not right. That's not right.
You're gonna...
Is this the sample test? Sorry, let me just see. The link that I have is a different test.
Okay.
The link that I have is a different test.
So that's in the chat now. So if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, the first question that it's going to ask for you is your name. Please give the name that is on your Zoom account today, because we're going to be using this to form breakout rooms. So just make sure that's the same as you have there. And it doesn't have to mean, for example, I think we only have one Mary. If Mary just wants to write in Mary, that's fine.
So if we could do that now, that would be great. You can see I'm doing mine live.
That's okay. If you're not teaching a test, that's fine. You might want to put in something. Let's see. I'll put in another. Sorry. If you reopen the link, there's now under the test teaching, there's an other option. And if you're not teaching, that's fine. It's fine. And you can leave it blank if you like. That's no big deal.
Or if there's any one that you're interested in, just choose that. Oh, you can't.
Please ink on it appropriately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Looks like David was more right.
How'd I do, Nick? Did I fill that out correctly?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know that there's an incorrect way to fill it out. So.
I'm gonna stop the share there for a second.
I did set it to check. So if you're teaching multiple tests, feel free to check all the tests that are relevant.
So I stopped at a road stop and I filled out the form and I'm driving again.
You.
Please prioritize your own safety, Mary.
Hey, there was a road stop sign or road stop area here, so it was perfect.
Good.
Bye.
Safe. She's in Hokkaido too, I think.
Yeah, and it probably I hope goes out without saying, but we really do appreciate everyone taking some time out of your day, and I hope we're useful for it because it's
Time is
a
precious.
bit daunting to have this many teachers watching me talk. So let's see here, 9. That's cool. That's cool, man.
You can shut your camera off, Nick, if you don't want. Didn't we have this conversation the other day about the cameras on, cameras off?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting actually. If you're wondering about Koopa and Waluigi in the background there, this is my daughter made this, drew the pictures. My family made the happy birthday thing, but I leave it up in the background so that students know that I'm in home. Kind of lowers down the anxiety. But
You want to know about my background, kids? It's called covering up the futons, you know? I'm in a cot right now.
okay, let's see. It looks like we got a number of things. So first thing I'll just do very quickly is, and one of the useful, for those of you who are familiar with Google Forms, this will be a review and I'm not going to talk about it too much. But let me just quickly share my screen because I can show you one of the upsides with Google Forms, as you can see, is it's very easy to set up a question and your responses immediately come up on a main page. So we've got 2 people named Glenn Hill today. Interesting. 3 people named Glenn Hill. Anyway, the point being is you can see it in graph form. So for example, we can very quickly see that we've got a lot of university teachers, a lot of TOEIC teachers. One of the nice things in regards to Google Forms this way, if you're using it in a test class, and I'll show you how, later I'll be showing you how to quickly convert a page into a form. But one nice thing is that you can quickly see if a majority of students got the answer correct, in which case you can then not teach, you can kind of focus your energies on the questions that were incorrect. So a number of you said TOEIC, and that was the wrong answer to this question. So anyway, so that's one nice thing. The other nice thing with Google Forms is that I've already linked this to a page, and I'll show you how to link it to a spreadsheet. But when you get it linked to a spreadsheet, what you can quickly do with a spreadsheet is to organize it by alphabet on each column. So for example, I can now quickly make a group of university teachers only or junior, senior high school teachers only. Likewise, you could do it with tests, you know. So that's one of the nice aspects of Google Forms. And for those of you who are wondering what this particular gray line is, this freeze function, which is a very useful thing to know. Sometimes, obviously, everyone's got their name here. And if I move over, I don't want to lose the name. I want to see what that person has done. Particularly, this is useful if you have 20, 30 questions. And just so you know how I did that, it's really easy. You go into View on Google Forms, and then Freeze. And then you can either freeze one row, two columns, or, for example, let's say I wanted to freeze at this point, which is not in the second column. You go to Freeze and up to current column, and then it'll freeze up to there. So just a useful thing. And one of the things I found actually with the test classes is being able to manage information quickly is just, yeah, it's necessary under the current conditions. So anyway,
can I interject here, because you've shown me that before, but I forgot, and it would be very handy for Jose and myself, because we use a Google form for the podcast. Okay. And I'm always going to the name and reading across trying to find that, because there's about 20 questions I have to answer, and I'm like, so this is going to save me lots of time. Thank you for reminding me of that cool technique.
Okay, cool. If I'm going quickly, please feel free to interject. If
I'm interjecting.
Who's interjecting?
Elizabeth. Okay. I'm sorry. Can you just do that again? So you go to View.
Sorry.
You go to View, and you
actually I've undone accidentally. I've undone rows, so I'll redo rows. So you go up to View, and the first option on View says Freeze.
Yes.
And so you can then freeze a row. A row would be the top is a row, and then the columns are up and down. Okay.
So when you're freezing the names, you're freezing a column?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So this is a column. So if I go to View and Freeze,
yeah.
Okay. So
Thank
columns. Yeah. Yeah, spreadsheets are useful, but the more data you get, the more unwieldy it gets. So one other thing you're probably noticing here, that I've got the timestamps. I've got the timestamps so that you can't see them, so that you can make this smaller, right? And again, with that, for example, let's see here. Notice how this set there's a lot of, this is under, where is it? Sorry.
Is this the wraparound?
Yeah, wraparound. There we are. So this button here that has the line and arrow has text wrapping, and the three options. The default is to overlap. So the default, for example, here, you notice how textbooks is going into the next column. Mm. Now something gets written here, that disappears. Okay. But sometimes you want to see everything, particularly if you have like a paragraph question or they're writing a longer response. I want to see the whole thing. Then what you do there is you go to the second one, which has a wraparound, which puts the entire thing in the space that you've set. So if I make this smaller, all the text stays in. Okay, so kind of useful to know. And then the last one, which I've done here, so you'll get information like timestamps, etc. You don't need to see that. You need to preserve it, but you don't need to see it all the time. And in that case, what I've done here is to do, let's see here. What I've done here is to do the third option, which is to clip it. And that means that whatever is going over gets hidden. So those are three options that are useful to know. Sorry if this is turning into a spreadsheet tutorial, but.
Well, it'll come back to the testing now.
So now that we've done that, I just wanted to show those things. If David could chat just a little bit, I'm going to take that spreadsheet information to make up actually, I don't know that I can. David, you're the host. Mm. and I can't make breakout rooms, even though I'm a co-host.
Well, let me just straighten that out for a second. If I,
Okay.
Jose, if I switch him to host, is my recording still happening? Thank you. Nick DiNunzio. You are now the host.
Okay, cool. If I'm the
While you're doing
host, then Dave, if you want to chat a little bit
Yep,
about,
okay.
and
Nick, you might want to make David co-host again, because once he gives you hosting,
Thank
he
you.
loses.
Let's see, whoever said that is,
That was Jenny,
Thank you, Jenny.
tech superstar.
Yeah, that's what we need, superstars here today.
this is where I'm embarrassed. How do I make a co-host?
So
Go, Dave.
just you go up to next to my name, Nick. Go to the end of my name, and it says you should have some.
Gotcha. There you go. Thanks.
Okay, and so
Gotcha.
while we're talking, or while we're one of the issues with test taking is vocabulary usually. So I'll just give you a little tip of one of the things that I've done, which I've learned from Nick as well, which is kids will say after a listening section, they do the listening and then we go back and sometimes we'll look at the script. This is hopefully going to open. So this would be a script from one of the listening sections. Then I'll get the students to hover through and find vocab that is new to them, things that they don't know. It's just like an extra activity. So then what I do from that script is using a spreadsheet is I get the students to write the vocab in the left, then I put them into breakout rooms and they each get a section of vocab, maybe 4 words each for each group. And then they go through and they find the meaning, the Japanese meaning, and then an example. And we make that. And again, due to Nick's ingenuity, each section, so the English meaning, there's a dictionary at the top here that they can go to quickly.
How do you give them separate sections there, David? If they're all in breakout rooms,
yeah,
and working on the same document, what do? You just tell them, you guys work on numbers 1 to 5?
For example, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've got that even more sophisticated in other classes where I color code it. And I have another column with like groups 1 to, group 1, first 5 words, group 2, first, so, but I also will use color coding so I can, each group would have a different color of words to work on. But yes, exactly, Glenn. So they fill this out. That's their work. And this is an actual example of student work here. And there's no name, so there's no fear of, now they can take this list, and Nick is going to show us this a little bit later. They can take this list and turn it into a Quizlet set, a Quizlet word set.
One quick further question, David.
Yes.
We all know that there's more than one definition to words.
Yes.
How do you confirm that the meaning that they put in there in both languages is the one that fits the thing that they're reading?
That's an excellent question, and I often don't have time to confirm it.
Yeah.
I'll let Nick speak in a second, but I will go through, and if I have time, I'll go through and generally check that it looks okay, but is it the exact meaning that they're looking for? Nick, you might be able to respond to that better than I can.
Yeah, first of all, any sort of bulk vocab spreadsheet generation like this, that's one of the problems that you run into. If it's a lower frequency word, there's usually a less probability that it's going to have like very, very different meanings. But one problem, of course, that you run into is, let's say, idioms that are using a word in a way that the students haven't been exposed to. The one that I found out this semester was kind of interesting was the use of the word make as in to arrive somewhere. So I'm sorry, I can't make it to your party. The students didn't know that. So those types of problems do come up. I've got Japanese 2 proficiency, so I'm okay with that. Obviously for an English speaker, it's a little bit easier for you to examine the meaning that they've given on the English side than on the on the Japanese side. So.
To add to that, Glenn, one of the purposes of doing this is not necessarily that they be correct all the time, but that they learn how to do things for themselves.
Right.
So they learn how to make their own word list. They learn how to check the dictionary, and particularly for TOEFL. And if they really need to self-study, big time. And so they need technique.
Do they take the examples from the text that they're studying, like your TOEFL textbook?
That's actually a good point, Kevin. I haven't required them to do that, but that would be excellent if they found the word in the listening example, use that example for the example. That would be a great way to keep it closer to the real meaning, wouldn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Good idea. Thank you.
Okay.
I was asking you.
I've made the rooms. I've made the rooms now. So
okay.
The rooms are far from perfect, and I might need to rotate around. But
you want me to stop sharing for a second there, Nick?
Sure. No, it's no big deal because we don't need that quickly. So we wanted to make the rooms to get you guys into groups so that, because one of the goals for this was to get people who had solutions to talk to people who had problems, and not to overstate. I have some solutions, David has some solutions, but we don't have all solutions. So,
how many groups have you made, Nick?
What's that? I've made 4 groups or 3 groups. One of the problems I was running into was that some people haven't filled out the survey, so we can add them in as we go.
Okay. Do we want them to use the group activity?
Why don't we use that in just a little bit? Why don't we?
Okay.
Because I have a feeling we're having some more people kind of sneak in. So why don't we do the presentation section kind of on the front side, and then get group activity after another 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. So you're ready for the breakout rooms, but we won't use them yet.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Would you like to add to that vocab section then, Nick? Because
yeah, very quickly. So let's see. Sorry, still don't have my. So let's see. David had posted the vocab here. Okay, so very quickly. One of the nice things with, again, if you know this already, there we are. So one of the nice things with getting something into a vocab sheet, and one of the reasons why we like to use it, is that we can quickly make Quizlet sets out of it. I'm just going to freeze this up because that'll. There we go. Okay, so I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Quizlet, and I'm just going to quickly show you how to make a Quizlet set from a spreadsheet. It's very easy. If you have a Quizlet account, I have a teacher paid account, but you do not need a teacher paid account to make Quizlet sets. The benefit of having a teacher account, if you want one, is there are certain features like voice, being able to voice over vocab that have traditionally been for pay. I believe Quizlet Live, for those of you who are familiar with it, used to be teacher only. I'm not sure if it still is. So there are a couple of benefits to it, but it's not necessary for what I'm about to show.
I use Quizlet Live and I'm not a paid member.
Okay, so you go to create, you're going to create a set. And you have to have a title, so we'll just say OTJ test. This is one of the things that is necessary. You can't make a set without it. But then after that, you can individually type in, but that takes a long time. And so there's one option here, which is to import from Word, Excel, or Google Docs. And if you click on that, you'll get something that looks like this. And if we go back to the vocab sheet that David had shown us, we can take the words that we want to use today. We can copy them, go over to Quizlet, paste, and then hit import. And now what's happened is that all of that has been spaced, and you now have an individual an individual entry for each. Now, if you notice, this has a yellow bar around it. What that means is that someone else, somewhere else in this list, the same word has appeared. So you've got a double word appearing. So this is just a way to help you to avoid double, and you would just eliminate one of them. Okay? There are other options involved. I don't really want to go too far into that. I'm going to see if it's going to do this. Let's go to create. Okay, so one thing that came up is that you need to choose a term language to create a set. What that means is that it's not recognizing that this is English. Okay, so you have to go through and just choose a language. If there are no red marks, then you can create the set and you now have a new Quizlet set.
Have you ever let students try to make their own Quizlet?
David?
Mine do.
They do, okay. I might try that myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially with the TOEFL class. In fact, one of our lovely students, one day when I was trying to do it, it's a little embarrassing, but I was like, I'm going to show you guys the great thing today. I learned from Nick, and then I couldn't do it. And then this lovely student went ahead during the break and she made the Quizlet list. And when we came back from the break, she said, David, I finished the list for us. And I was like, okay, thank you.
So one other thing that you might be thinking here, just if you notice, I just made this list with the English. But let's say that you wanted to make the Japanese list. How do you do that? With Google Sheets, you just click on the column and drag, and now they're next to each other. So it's easy enough to move the columns around.
And you just select the English word and the Japanese meaning?
Yeah. So basically to make a Quizlet list, you need to have the two columns, the two sides of the flashcard have to be next to each other.
Now, Nick, I have done it before where I had the English word, the English meaning, and then the Japanese, and it will put the English meaning and the Japanese definition next to each other on the main side.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's making that quickly. In regard, so David was talking about, this is what we had for vocab. The second thing going into reading that I just wanted to quickly talk through is.
Nick, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
If you've got two languages up there, whether they're both for the meaning or whatever, you got two languages up there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do for the language setting that they require?
Okay, let's just show you what that looks like. Okay.
Or is there two different settings then? Maybe one for the word and one for the meaning?
That's correct.
Yeah, no, that's what happens is there's a lot of bilingual sets. And so I'm not sure, I think that the reason why Quizlet does it is because one of the search settings is language. And so if you're saying that this is a TOEFL Japanese set, but that language isn't set to Japanese, then that wouldn't get into the search function. So.
Okay, so the word itself and the meaning will have separate settings for that. So
Yes.
that's all. Okay, easy enough.
And if there are any problems, that you have, when you click create a set, it will zoom like it did for me back to the top and tell you language problem, but anything that you need to do to correct it will be in red. So.
Additionally, Glenn or members who are participating, if you are making a set word by word, meaning you're doing it manually, and say you're putting an English word on the left, and you choose Japanese for the definition, it will often suggest a definition for you that if your Japanese is good enough, you can recognize as, oh, that is a good definition. It'll also recognize an English definition of the word.
Right.
And it'll suggest an English definition, which then you can choose from if you're doing them manually. So,
keep in mind that what Quizlet is making its suggestions based on is not translation, but other users who have used the same word.
okay.
So it's cross-referencing. It's seen this word before, and most of the time the word is using this definition, so that'll be the highest one. That gets to be an issue if you're using a word, let's say as a if you're using a word, a good example might be, let's say, time. So you're referring to time in the sense of, do you remember that time we went to Oldori Park together as compared to what time is it? So just keep in mind that, you just double checking.
Good. Nick, we've got about 15 minutes before we want to get into groups.
Right. Right. So let me just quickly show you just how to make a Google form very, very quickly. A very useful thing that I use quite a bit. So I'm going to go into the sample. And when you're making a Google form, one thing that you're going to want probably as a teacher, again, in order to organize all of the data afterwards, you're probably going to want the student names and the student numbers. I had you all fill your names in, and you could, for example, oops, let's go here, sorry. You could, for example, type in name, and Google will automatically put it to short answer, okay? So that's what we did today. The problem with that, of course, is that sometimes students misspell their name accidentally, and if one letter gets off, it doesn't go on the spreadsheet well. Another thing is if you have them filling in their student number and they make one small mistake, again, it's going to throw everything off. So the way to undo that is actually relatively simple. So I've made a grade book here. I'm using a template grade book from Google Sheets. So you don't have to use this at all. But what I've created is A, B, C, D, E, F with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Aaron, Becky, Chris, Daniel. So it's all anonymous names, no students here. And what you do is, the first thing you do is you go to the top at your student number, you go down to the bottom of the list that you want, you click on copy, you then go to this name section, but rather than short answer, you go to drop down. And then in option 1, what you do is you just hit paste. And what's now happened is that it's populated the entire thing with each of the student numbers and each of the names, each individually. And what this looks like for the student is that they go to name and they just choose their name from the list. So this way you've eliminated the human error that comes up with filling in their names.
And student numbers.
Yeah. So the next thing is, in terms of questions, I don't want to go too far into questions, but in terms of questions, you've got a few options. Multiple choice is your standard multiple choice. Drop down is also multiple choice. It's just a difference in format. With a multiple choice question, the students would see all the answers on the page. With drop down, they only see one column and they have to click on it. So on the other hand, checkboxes is what we use today. Checkboxes is where multiple answers are given. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm sorry, I might be assuming that you know something that maybe you don't know. So I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with the fact that Google Forms has a quiz option. So right now, Google Forms is just doing a survey. But if you move over to where it says quizzes and you click on that and you click on make this a quiz, what you now have is that you will be, and I'll show you how to do this in just a second, but you will be supplying what the correct answer to the questions are and supplying a point value for each question. Okay? And then after the students are finished, they will see the missed question, correct answers, and point values, and you can change that as you like. For example, if you wanted them to take the same quiz again and you didn't want them to know what the correct answers were. Of course, you can also set it so that they cannot see the answers until you allow them to. And that way, if you're worried about cheating, you know, someone taking a quiz and someone cheating. So anyway, when you're making questions, what I've done with my TOEFL class is the first thing I do is I get on the name of the file, I would give the page 20 to 23. And then, so that's just telling the students what the page is. Sorry. It's automatically asking me for email address here, and I'll just show you why that's happened. Because I've left this checkbox, collect email addresses, on. Okay, so you don't need that. So that's the reason why that happened, just for those of you who are wondering. So when you're making a question, what I would then do is go to a title, create a title with, let's say, reading number 1. So just making sure, what I tend to do, we use this Bible here. We use this. And so what I tend to do is to just make certain that the students have enough information that they know what page they're answering from. And the reason I do this is, first of all, for copyright reasons, I don't want to be typing in content from Cengage, or Cengage, as my own, presenting it as my own material. Number 1. Number 2, it takes a lot longer to type all that stuff in. So it's time saving and copyright protecting. So then you go, question 1, you would just type in 1, A, B, C, D. Question 2, so that's all you're doing. And then after you've typed in a multiple choice question, so question 1, let's say the answer here was C. You then go down to this button that says answer key. You click in C. That means that this is the only one will be recognized. Students will get 0 points for this. So you raise that up to 1. And now you've got, if they click C, they will get 1 point for this quiz. Okay? One nuisance point of Google Forms is that if I add a new multiple choice question, you notice that the answer key has 0 points. It's a pain in the butt if you forget it. So what I usually do is, rather than creating a new question, I copy this question, change the number, and change the answer. Okay?
Nick, how do you display something that they can read in order to get these answers?
How do I display something that they can read? For example, if I wanted to post, if I wanted to put a PDF.
Yeah, if you want some comprehension, for example, or pick a grammar point and they have to read a paragraph.
Okay, so what you do then is, first of all, a useful thing to know is, anytime you add something, you want to be on the thing above what you're adding. So for example, I don't want the reading to be below question number 1. I want it to start at the top. So I go here to that. And then one thing that you can do is add an image. And if you add an image, you can insert a PDF file here. Okay. I don't know that there's any way to add direct texts, you know, like a document of some sort, but PDFs are available.
What I usually do, Glenn, is if I have the text in a Word document, I'll do a screen capture, turn it into an image, and then import it into a Google Doc as an image. And that'll show me the text.
So you can import, say, a PNG or a JPEG.
That's correct. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
You can also add text with description.
With description. Can you, sorry,
Probably just a copy paste, eh, Scott?
You can do that. Does it get clunky?
It can be a bit clunky, yes.
Okay, that would be the only. Okay. Anyway, one other thing that's useful, so you might be thinking about this in regards to listening questions. And one pain in the butt of Google Forms is that it doesn't integrate with audio files. So the only way that you can do this, one thing that you can do is to paste a link. So for example, if we had an audio file on, boy, I wasn't expecting that. If you have an audio file in Google Docs, it would be online. The problem with that is when you click on the link, it will go to a new page. Okay. What Dave has done, I believe Dave's done this. You've made YouTube videos of audio only. So unlisted YouTube videos of audio only. YouTube is relatively straightforward. If you have a URL for YouTube video, you can embed it directly in. I've used this for dictation activities where I've recorded a dictation exercise on YouTube with just a blank screen.
Nick, if you scroll down to the listening slide, there's a sample item 1.
Okay.
And you can click on that and it'll should open into what I've done. I've converted all of the listening examples into YouTube videos for the TOEFL test, for the particular book we're using. It should.
Lesson 11, Purpose, Method, and Attitude questions. Sample item 1.
So these are unlisted, correct, David?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. It is important when you're making YouTube videos that you make sure that they're unlisted, because if you start making money off this accidentally.
Why don't you grab a link for that, Nick, and copy it into your Google form to show how that works. Sorry to interrupt, but.
No, this session is bringing back bad memories of Zoom reading. I'm buying a new computer, so I have a new computer coming in next week, and so it's I'm still working on the tiny laptop here. So embedding. Embedding, you click on the add video section, the URL, you paste in the URL. You'll get a sample of the thumbnail of what it's going to look like, so that gives you a sense. And then when you select. And anytime that you're going, sorry?
I'm sorry to interrupt. It just plays it right in there.
Yeah. And anytime that you're wondering what the student is going to see when they're doing this, you can click on the I button at the top, the preview, which then shows you.
And if I might add, all of this stuff, because this is my second year teaching this class, last year I was doing all this in class. I would just have the listening example in my computer and I would play it to the whole class and they would listen. But moving online, we had to get everything up into a digital form. In YouTube was the best way for the listening at the time. There might be other ways. So I went ahead, based on Nick's advice for this actually, get all these things into YouTube videos, Dave. That'll save you a lot of time for the online experience. And it certainly helped because embedding this into a Google form meant that the kids could do this at home for homework.
So one last thing that I haven't touched on here, which is kind of helpful to know. So one of the things I've found in teaching online this term is that some of the students are doing this on phones and tablets. And it was the bias that I had, which is that I do everything on computer and you just scroll down. But this is a little bit clunky on a phone. And so what you do to help with this is, you notice that this is a title. I'm going to change this from being a title to being a section. And I'm going to call this reading 1, even though there's listening on it. And what this does for the student is that when they're clicking on, they only have one thing to answer here. They click on their name, they move to next. And now they only have questions relating to that. So for example, what Glenn was talking about earlier was putting a text here, right? Well, maybe you only want to have them answering questions on this text, and then you want to add a new text. Adding a new section means that anytime they move to the new section, they're only seeing things related to that content. So,
good.
Apologies if this is turning into a little bit of a Google session, but
let's take it out of that for a second. And
well, let me quickly just show you 2 things that I've also used online. And I recommend look at attached videos, and we're going to be, this sheet will be available after, correct, Dave?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the 2 things that I've attached here is a site called readtheory.org and readworks.org. So these are just 2, this .org's, America has gone into Common Core implementation, and they haven't really given teachers materials. The giving of materials has been slow, so there have been a number of NPOs that are coming out to fill out that need. Readtheory.org is a reading comprehension website where students read a short passage and are asked questions like, what was the author's intent? Or based on this, what would you infer the author's opinion, which is related to TOEFL questions. So this is kind of an intensive reading. It's also nice because it's scaled. If a student gets this level 5 questions correct a certain number of times, they will move up to level 6. If they get it wrong, they will move down to level 4. So it's kind of, it's a little bit teacher hands off, like you put them in and they rise or fall based on their output, but it is useful. I'm not using it this term for other reasons, but it is useful, something I've looked at. The other one, readworks.org, is more like an extensive reading site. It has thousands of articles graded by K through 12, so kindergarten through 12th grade. And it's designed to be lots of reading. It's designed to build up reading stamina and vocabulary, again, for native speakers. But these are free sites that are easy enough to set up a class and get started very quickly. And you also get you also can download student performance in CSV files. So it's easy enough to track afterwards. But I don't want to go too far into that. I've posted videos and the sites.
Good. Why don't we move on to the group activity so we can start to get some feedback from people.
Yeah.
Interaction here. And
okay, so David, let's see, David had set up, actually, why don't you talk about this, David?
okay.
I can stop sharing. Okay. Do you want me to put the link into the chat?
Yes, please do that.
Gotcha.
So what we'll do right now for the next few minutes is to try to put you guys into some groups where you can come up with some possible questions or possible techniques or ideas that you have for teaching online testing classes, and get your ideas, and you're going to type them into, if I can find it, here we go, this one here, group activity. So I made a little Google Doc. So each group's going to have a little section of the page. This will be group 1, and below there you can share some of your ideas with each other. So when you get into your breakout rooms, perhaps it would be a good idea for one person to share the screen in the breakout rooms, and then the other members can start sharing some ideas with each other, either questions you have or comments you have, or the title is what questions would you like to have answered today, but it could also be what points would you like to talk about today, or what information would you like to share. So in your groups, we'll give you like 5 or 10 minutes in your group.
Why don't we run from now to 11:10? So about 15 minutes to kind of talk through, and then that'll give us 20 minutes for Q&A at the end.
Yeah.
That sound good?
Yeah, let's do that. And so let's,
okay, just to be clear, I've tried to break you up. I've tried. Sorry, I just got a message here from
Mary's back.
Yeah, Mary's back. So let's see if that's.
For
some reason, she's not popping on the breakout rooms list. So anyway, I've tried to split you up according to the test that you're teaching, but it hasn't been perfect. So you might want to just kind of talk, introduce each other when you get into your rooms quickly. Okay.
And I'll let you let that roll, Nick. You're the.
Okay, I'm going to put you into rooms now and try to figure out what to do with Mary. Nice to see you, Mary.
You're going to want to turn your microphones in your breakout rooms.
David, just want to remind you, or everyone else, that whatever is happening in the breakout rooms will not be recorded.
That's correct.
Going on already, but so just if you want to record it, and the recording will continue when you come back to the conference. Right?
Okay. Thanks.
Dave, can I talk to you for a minute before I go to my breakout room?
Dave?
I'll stay here, yeah. Everybody else needs to join their breakout room, right?
Okay, Mary, let's see here, Mary. What are you teaching primarily?
Go for ACAN.
ACAN, okay.
although I've done TOEFL before and Cambridge. So.
Okay, let's see. I think that's.
Okay, breakout what room? 1. Okay.
Thanks, Mary. Good to see you.
Okay, thanks guys. I'm sorry I haven't been paying much attention to what was going on. I've just got a bunch of shit that I gotta deal with here. Dave, can I ask the session right after this one at noon on health and well-being?
Yeah.
Can I have you come and maybe show some of those therapy things that you said you were going to do a video about? Or you're busy at noon?
I don't know. If I'm free, I'll jump in. How would that be?
That would be fine. That would be excellent. And Nick already left, or Nick?
He's joined a breakout room by the looks of things.
Well, I don't know where I'm going, but I was going to put in a request, but I'll go join the breakout room.
Okay, I'll join too.
Okay.
Yep, good one.
If you don't have your video on.
All right.
Hey.
There we go. How many people?
Hiya.
3 participants.
Hey.
There's just 3 of us.
Yeah.
I don't want to risk putting my video on in case I steal some of the bandwidth from my wife's Zoom class at the moment. So sorry about that.
Are you guys able to look at the document that Nick shared?
The first one, the second one.
The Google Doc.
Yes.
Maybe I didn't get it.
Yeah, it was in the chat, so you probably can't see the chat now, right?
No.
No, you had to
just that first one with the question on and what we were teaching. That was the only one
okay.
Did he post the second one?
Maybe we didn't share it. We might have to come back out of breakout rooms.
All right.
Oh, look at that.
I think that when you share something in the main room, it doesn't automatically transfer into breakout rooms.
Oh, I see.
I can see the chat and I can see that we didn't share it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see the chat now.
Yeah. We can see. I'm wondering if I can get Nick's attention from here because
you can. There's a button, ask for help.
I've never been in a breakout room from this point. Where's the ask for help?
Oh, hang on. No, I can see it now.
At the bottom near the record and reactions button, there's a button.
Can you say?
Oh, because you're host.
I can see it now.
Can you just type in "we don't have the form" and we need to come back?
No, I've got the form.
You can't type. Oh, do you? How'd you get?
Yeah, it's in the chat.
Oh.
Yeah, if you click on chat, and then
there's Nick.
Yeah.
Do we have
a second? You went to help out. Gotcha.
I'm sure we had the form, but do we?
Yeah, it's in the chat now.
Oh, look at there.
Shared at 10:55. Yeah.
Sorry, Nicholas, we were having trouble with the form.
Oh, there it is. Okay, we got it.
Yeah.
Who wants to out of this group? Who would like to share? Well, we don't need to share our screen. We can. Where are we? What group number are we?
You're 3.
Okay, so we're group 3. Let's scroll down to group 3, guys. And
okay.
I think we're okay, Nick.
Cool.
And all we need to do is pop in some ideas or questions that we might have.
Do you want me Do you want me to share the screen and?
Yeah, why don't you? That'd be great.
Because Dan can't share the screen.
Yeah, you share your screen. Hopefully you have access to do that. There we go. We're group 3.
Group 3.
All right, sweet.
Do we want our names on there or no?
Why not?
Whatever.
I'll do that. So.
Oh, you're doing it. Okay.
I'll just put it next to our group thing. So I'll just type in Elizabeth and then Dan. Gotta spell this right. You do it with an S.
Yes. Please.
I got in trouble for that once.
Only once. Oh, you're doing good.
Oh, you don't know how hard it is right now on this PJ because the issues are coming in about our being inclusive and non-inclusive and the language we're using to describe the problems and issues. Anyway, back to TOEFL or test taking. You got any questions that you guys have?
I not knowing when we were going back into the classroom and you know that carrot hanging before us of going back into the classroom, I thought first semester I'll just do all the reading and listening. Sorry, the reading part, reading and writing. So this semester I've got no choice. I've got to do asynchronously the listening, and so that last information on using the YouTube
Yeah.
is really interesting, and I'll try to do that.
It's a lot of work ahead of time because you have to convert your
I
file.
know. I think I'm going to have to start on that today.
Yeah. And labeling those correctly so they match the textbook exactly. What I did to make those, to make that, I could probably share that with the group, but how I made the description in the video is I used Keynote to make an image.
Right.
Typed all the information in, the textbook name, the unit number, and then I saved that image and brought it into the YouTube. Then I brought the file, the audio file, and that image into iMovie.
Right.
So very long and drawn out.
I mean, the easy way would just be to send all the audio files to the students, but I might get in trouble for doing that.
As it turned out, all of the audio files for the textbook I'm using are online. So I ended up, for a few I missed, I ended up using that anyway. So I found that I did a little bit of extra work.
Definitely very lucky to get to choose a textbook. I basically chose the smallest textbook because of the students' level. Predicted students level, just because I didn't want them to carry around a bloody phone book to school every day. Right. And just lucky enough, it had the downloadable audio anyway for most of the stuff. Obviously, the teachers got their own audio stuff, but also I was lucky that the teacher's manual was digitized as well, so I could do a lot of just cut and pasting or copy pasting.
In fact, that's
really saved a lot of time.
Yes, and as you go ahead, Elizabeth. No
so
need.
I'm going to be teaching TOEIC for students who are returning from abroad. So their language level will probably be quite high, but they have absolutely no experience with TOEIC. Do you guys have a textbook that you can recommend? And then
in years.
So just keep thinking. And then I'm going to be teaching just next week for 4 days only, IELTS reading 3 days and IELTS speaking 1 day.
Wow.
For 50 minutes a day.
IELTS reading and speaking?
3 times reading and 1 time speaking. So 3 days. 3 days I will be teaching reading, and 1 day I will be teaching speaking, and it's only 50 minutes each.
Right. Oh, there must be something online for that. Somebody must have already created, I'm sure.
So I'm just wondering if you guys have any.
Because it's not worth getting a textbook.
We'll bring this back to the whole group in a minute, and I bet somebody will, right?
Yeah. I did find a site, Magoosh or something like that. It's pretty good.
Oh, yeah?
It has quite a lot of information, but and then I might be teaching TOEFL, because only 1 student signed up so far. The week after, again, 4 days only of TOEFL, and I'll be doing reading. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway,
what I can suggest for anything that you find for something like reading, speaking, I'm going to do a speaking sample soon to help out with like IELTS type speaking things, hopefully by the end of today. I'm using a site, so I'll show you an easy way that I've managed to do that. But for the reading section, where if it's online, right? Is it online?
Yeah.
Elizabeth, so you know, the Google Forms that Nick was showing, like that's a really easy way for people may have the text or the information in front of them, but you want to know if they got the answers right or wrong. So while they're doing maybe they complete the whole exercise in their textbook or whatever, and then later they input their answers into the Google Form so you can see who.
Yeah, that was really, really, really helpful what Nick just explained there about, there were quite a lot of things about Google Forms that I didn't know. I didn't know about adding the whole list of students. That's great, because we just have,
that's so amazing, right?
Yeah, I used Google Forms last term, first time ever, and I had to, question 1 was always what's your name, question 2 was always what's your student number, question 3 was what what class are you in, because it's a coordinated thing. So it was, yeah, this is like so much easier. They just choose their name.
Yeah, so having the spreadsheet set up with their student number, name, and whatever class they're in.
Yeah, that was
And
like
it's all done for you, right? So yeah, luckily Nick works at my Eikaiwa, and we also work at university together, and he's my neighbor, so we've been able to help each other get through all this. But he's a master at this stuff, and a year ago he was trying to show me this stuff. I was like, we don't need this stuff, and somebody deleted our stuff, I think, or things are moving along here. Good. So how can I try?
Those column freezing tips were, I wish I'd known them before I'd put in my grades.
Yes, that was amazing too. The column freezing. I was like, what the?
Well, you know what I'll do? I'll get Nick to do another separate workshop sometime in the next couple of weeks on OTJ.
That'd be great.
About Google Docs and the Docs forms quizzes only. He's got a lot of stuff he knows. He's a bit of a...
And I've used Quizlet, but it's been with stuff that's already made by somebody else.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about how. That was great. How to use the vocabulary list to make a Quizlet. Wow.
Isn't that amazing, right? So if you set up your spreadsheet the right way, students, like I share the spreadsheet just like we're sharing the Google Doc right now. So students get into groups and they work on those vocab sheets together. You don't have to do anything except just make sure. The idea behind this is to get the kids to do as much work as possible, and for the because they're the ones that need to learn, right?
And they're actually helping you be able to use the same Quizlets in future classes if necessary. Have to stay online.
Yeah. So it's all powerful stuff. I would say for teaching, test taking, online is better. Because you can all that data is online. You can Quizlet, the spreadsheets. Write this in your notebook. No. Let's share it together on one document.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It also shows who's putting in the effort too.
Yeah. And then once we get to the speaking section, hopefully we'll have time, we can, and I'm going to, anybody wants to stick around for an extra 10 minutes or something, do that. But it's time to return to the main section.
Sure. Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. Nice to chat. Remember that your microphones are off when you come back from from a breakout room.
Thanks, I forgot that.
Nick, as they're coming back, I'd really love to save a little bit of time to show them a speaking example because I think it'll be
actually,
more time.
A couple people are bringing up things that maybe Paul's site would address as well. So
good. It's good to see everybody coming back.
Yeah, they didn't run away.
And we got some cameras on that weren't on before, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah. It's the craziness of.
I got to get this into gallery view.
And we got a baby in the room.
Yeah. Apologies if I've been talking quite a bit. I tend to get chatty when I'm nervous, so sorry about that.
Let's see what we got.
Nick, I'm king for that. Sorry. I'm here. You're gonna lose.
I'm Mr. Patient. I can just listen to people talk.
Yeah, that's why Dave and I get along on the podcast.
I can listen along to other people speak. Hang on one second, Nick. I'll share this screen here for us.
Yeah. Do you want to kind of run through this and?
We'll run through this. So, group 1: how to find level appropriate materials and how to present them online. That is the question. That's the what do they call it? It's the what's that cup that they're looking for? The holy grail of testing is finding appropriate materials that are matching their level.
But one of the things that I found is that it's hard to find things free online. And so, as much as, publishers do all that grading for you. So that's one of the reasons why I was sharing the Google Forms is a way for you to make basically an answer sheet so that if the students already have the textbook, they can do it. But yeah, this has been a problem.
I would add to that, one of the reasons I stopped teaching TOEIC at my institution was because the level of the materials was so much higher than what the students were capable of. I found it very unfulfilling just to say, well, they're at least getting awareness of the test. I just couldn't handle that as a teacher. But fortunately, this year for our TOEFL class, the textbook level and the student level is not a bad match, I would say.
But it's a measure of their fluency. It's not a measure of what level they're taking, like in an ACAN.
Well, a TOEFL reading example, if they don't have vocabulary, that if they don't have enough vocab, they can't understand what they're reading, right?
Yeah, well, that's the challenge for us in the first place, and the students obviously as well, but it's not like ACAN where they know which vocabulary they should be studying.
Right.
So that's part of the onus is on us to somehow find the level appropriate vocabulary or whatever it may be.
Well, but TOEFL is our level that they have to reach to. If they're way below that when they come into a class.
I think what we're talking about here, and I mean, you're right, Glenn, in a scaled test like the Cambridge tests or ACAN, where you're only taking up to a certain level, then it is the onus is on the teacher to get your vocab books, get those into the spreadsheets, et cetera, make certain that that's available. In a test like TOEIC, TOEFL, IELTS, where the scale is anybody can take it, then what Dave's talking about is an issue of a slightly different. I do think there is value. So, for example, websites like ted.ed, ed.ted, TED-Ed. There are a couple of YouTube channels, like one called Crash Course, etc., where they're teaching content. They're teaching, let's say, social studies, science, or whatever, in animated short films designed towards junior high school level students in native speaking contexts. That has a little bit of meaning support for the student, and it is helpful to get the students used to kind of being in the deep end. And one thing I'll show you very quickly for those of you, again, who know it. Oh, sorry, David, could you go to a YouTube, any YouTube, just go to YouTube quickly.
Hang on one second, I want to add another screen here. YouTube.
Do you know how to set for speed?
I do once I'm in, yeah. Like, I'll open this up.
今なら初めてアコムをご利用のお客様に限り最大現金12,000円プレゼント。
Sorry.
アコムは皆様の初めてを応援します。
So anyway, if you could stop for just a second. So if you notice, Dave, when he goes to that group, when he goes to the gearbox at the bottom, the settings, if you click on that, there's a playback speed. And if you click on that, again, the playback speed, 75%. If you do your word per minute speaking math, native speakers tend to speak at about 120 to 160 words. And YouTube videos are usually at the high end, 160 words per minute. And if you slow that down by 70%, it's going into 120, which means it still sounds slightly natural, but it's slow enough and accessible for students. So that would be one way to scale native materials for non-native learners. Another is, if you go on could you go back to the gearbox, Dave? The subtitles there, if you click on that, this has Japanese auto-generated because it's a commercial. TED-Ed and any educational site will have multiple subtitles, including Japanese quite often. And so that means that if you did a listening activity in class and students didn't understand it, you could tell them, okay, if you wanted to, for homework, if you wanted to understand it, this one's relatively new. Anyway, quite often there are subtitles that allow, again, native material to be accessible by non-native speakers. So, okay, does that answer that question somewhat?
Well, I think one point that is, do the teachers have students that have been streamed into those test courses? Mine weren't, so there's a big range.
Okay.
So to answer the question, a level appropriate, I mean, if you're lucky,
Yeah.
you already know roughly what level to deal with. That's a good point.
Well, the BM students at our university all have to pass a certain level of TOEIC by the time they graduate, to graduate. And so second year students were taking a TOEIC course, but they weren't, that's, again, I mentioned, that's one of the reasons I stopped teaching. It's like, this is not the way I like to teach, so I'm not, you know.
Yeah. Just a very quick thing. Scott just asked a quick question, which is TEDx or TED-Ed.
Yeah.
First of all, you probably all know TED Talks, so that's the main site. TEDx, you'll see that on YouTube sometimes. Those are independent of the TED organization talks. TED-Ed is actually a special site designed by TED that has animated short videos. So TED-Ed is what I usually use for my classes, to answer your question, Scott.
And just to go in just quickly to see, this is a 4-year-old video, so it might have Japanese in it.
In 1996, 56 volunteers took
More of the translations are available on their website, though, not on YouTube. So I think more of the annotations and stuff are on the TED website, not necessarily on YouTube.
TED-Ed, the annotations are available both.
I'm going to interrupt. We have about 10 minutes left in our
Okay.
scheduled time. And if we scroll down here a little bit, whoever wrote group 1, would anybody like to speak about what they were talking about here for this ACAN passage, photo passage? Certainly welcome to turn on your mic and bring yourself forward.
That was Mary.
Yeah, I was going to say, should I talk? Okay.
Your limit of 30 seconds. Go. No, just kidding. Go home.
No, for instance, at university, I did ACAN Pre-1 listening classes as makeup lessons. And I have lots of books here. I took the CDs, download them into my computer so I could easily play them. And then I took photographs or scanned the pages of the listening and were able to then put them up on my screen as I shared them on the screen. So the students didn't have any paper themselves.
Okay.
And so I had the students listen by looking at their screens and then just on their paper write down like question number 1, A, B, C, or D. Question number 2, A, B, C, or D. And then after a certain section, I went back and we listened together again. And then I had the kids use the old fashioned of 1, 2, 3, 4. They had to show me their fingers, what their answer was.
Mary, do you think Nick's explanation of Google, the way he uses Google quizzes today, would be useful for the kids to be able to go in and check, you know, question 1, A, B, or C, D, question 2, A, B, C, or D? You think that would be useful?
It would be, I agree. But what I was able to do is I would do like question 1, everybody, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I found out, oh, everybody got it wrong. And then I found out what they did choose. And then at that time, I opened up Whiteboard and did a grammar lesson or a vocabulary lesson, or I did a quick 1-minute spiel to help them find out why they made that one mistake.
Okay.
And I found the kids have said many, many times, they want feedback of why they made a mistake. They don't just want to know, okay, I got number 2 wrong, number 3 wrong, and number 4 wrong. Next test. They want to know why they got it wrong.
That's how we use the Google Docs, right? We find out which answer was incorrect most often, then we can hone in on those ones to give a better explanation.
So just to kind of, there are 2 things that I think what Mary's bringing up are good points. One came up in a conversation the other day. There's a website called Socrative, which I do not use. So I'm not very fluent with it, but what the person who was talking had said to me is they prefer Socrative over TED-Ed. Sorry, not TED-Ed, sorry, Socrative over Google Forms, because Socrative, you see each answer one question at a time. So students answer a question as a group, and then you're moving on one question at a time. What I use Google Forms for is something where, for example, there's a single reading with 5 questions. And I want students to move at their own pace and not have to wait for, not be rushed to move on, or not have to wait for slower people to move on. So there's no magic bullet that fixes it all.
I'm going to move to group 2.
Okay.
So we give each group a little bit of time here. Group 2 talked about test taking difficulties based on memorization of phrases. Anybody from group 2 like to speak up about any one point here that they think is most important for us to talk about?
Well, the third and the fourth one were pretty much related. We were just wondering, when you're doing remote lessons, I mean, they're obviously not physically in the same room with you, and
Okay, there are 2 things in regards to this. So one might be useful actually to show them Paul's site, Dave. But the other thing is, in terms of cheating, etc. I have not found a satisfactory answer to prevent cheating in remote teaching. So, I mean, unfortunately, any grades that you're given have to be I haven't had a rampant cheating problem in any of my classes either. So
to add to that, Glenn, one of the issues that we do have is we have to grade a TOEFL class when the actual purpose of the class is for the kids to take a TOEFL test, and that should be their grade. Did you pass the test or not, right? But we have to give them a university A, B, C, D grade. So I think for that, I mean, the obvious thing that teachers would do is say, like, if you cheat on this, you're only cheating yourself. Right. The whole purpose of doing this kind of work is, and Kevin's laughing down there, probably thinking, like, of course they're going to cheat. Well, yeah.
There's another thing I'm sorry, was somebody going to say something? I've been talking.
Yeah, that was just me again. I was going to say, I got out of teaching the TOEIC course at my school for 2 reasons. One, there was very few people that took it. But second, they wouldn't take a before and an after. So how do you actually grade a test-taking course is actually one of the biggest questions.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that someone had said, and I wish I could quote the person because it was really well articulated, is in order to avoid cheating, you need to create a low stakes or no stakes testing process. And so if you're only using Google Forms to test for assessment, so if you're only using it for the midterm and the final, that's determining their grade. In that case, cheating is something that you're not going to be able to deal with. It's just because there's so many ways that they could cheat that you wouldn't be able to see. On the other hand, if you're using Google Forms like I'm using it, which is as a substitute for the textbook. So every day in class, we're using this, and all I'm getting is kind of a register of that you did the work and where your problems were, so that we can focus on that as a class rather than, individual problems. That's the way I've used Google Forms, and it works in that function. So
yeah, a lot of it is participation.
Now, Dave, we're getting towards the end here, yep. And how are you guys on time, just so I know, because I don't want to open up something that's useful with only 3 minutes left.
What are your tips for teaching writing? What are your best sources of grading?
Yeah, this is coming into Paul's site, and I'd like to introduce it if possible.
Yeah. Can I introduce the speaking section first, and then
sure,
I'll let you take care of the other section. So at least with the TOEFL test, there's a speaking component, and with that speaking component, you have to find a way for kids to record themselves doing samples or real questions from the TOEFL test, and you need a place to house that so you as a teacher can then go through and find out how they did and what they're doing. So we're both using this website,
Full disclosure, Paul Rain is a co-worker of ours.
And he's also an OTJ member. And so, for example, if somebody had to do, you can do this with your smartphone, you can do this with your iPad, you can do this with your computer. I'm the teacher here. I'm going to set up an audio. If I call this OTJ, I can set up an audio recording example. There's no media here that I'm adding. I could add some audio for the question or some video for the question.
So, sorry, just and very quickly, Mary, this would be a section where if you were to do what David's about to show and post a picture from ACAN, you can attach a picture to this as a prompt.
Right. So Paul has some sample independent questions from TOEFL in here already, and you can select who is your best friend, describe this person and say why he or she is your best friend. I choose that. I can set a time limit of 1 minute. Oh, he changed it to 1.5.
Okay.
2 minutes, so that's a new. So we keep it at 1 minute. One of the things that we like to do, he's also got a word count thing that's new now.
Okay.
So put a maximum word count in, but we can select it to have the students record their voice. Then when they're finished, they have to go back through and type, listen to what they wrote and type it up. So then we as a teacher have the audio and the text, and that's much easier to deal with when you're trying to.
One other thing that comes up with that is that if students can record multiple times, like they're only submitting once, but they can record multiple times. And so with a TOEFL type of thing, when they type out what they've written, sometimes they notice grammatical mistakes that they didn't notice while speaking, and are then able to edit over top. So
pedagogically sound. So if I save that, then we get a link, and if I copy that link into the chat.
We're at 30 now, and I'm not sure what time, how strict you guys are with time.
There's nothing else until 12 o'clock, so you're not interfering with other people.
Okay.
I'll send this out in the chat, and you can actually give it a try for a second.
Okay, Dave, I'm gonna give something else a try for a second. I gotta run to just out for just a second.
Yep. So I just sent the link in the chat. Why don't you go open the link, keep your mic shut off on Zoom, and try to answer that question. And you'll see exactly. Oh, by the way, before you do that, when you get to the, at the end, you're gonna have to give a student number and a username and the student number twice. Just type in your birth date and your name, your first name. And you'll have to type in your birth date twice as your student number. So November 24th, for example. That comes at the very end, so give it a go. This might take you 5 minutes. Glenn, yeah. Dikita.
I'm out of here. Sorry, I have to leave.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Thanks for coming.
Thanks to both of you guys.
Yeah. Anybody who has to leave, thank you. And
by the way, David,
yes.
Since you're recording it, don't forget to also save the chat, since you've got all those links in it.
Okay. I'll try to remember. How are people sharing the chats?
What?
How are people sharing the chats later? Do you know?
You'd have to ask Jose or Adam about that.
Okay.
But mostly, for the sake of the links that you posted, then Adam can take those links and put them up on the OTJ Wisecat site.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Underneath your
you don't have to ask Jose or Adam because Jenny just answered the question.
Lol.
I was trying to swallow as quickly as I could my sandwich so that I could answer the question, and I go, as I'm swallowing, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Okay, I got to go too, guys. Next session, I'm up, and I hope to see you there. Bye.
I'm gonna go back and see if anybody's finished yet.
See you, Jenny. Thanks for your help today.
I mean, I can stick around for a little bit.
Yeah, Jose.
I'm the one that's leaving.
Jose's leaving.
I see. You're saying goodbye to Jose. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just saw you saying goodbye. I was like, oh, see.
Here's the OTJ. I've got 0 people finished yet.
Okay. Let's see here.
I just want to make sure there's no student names here. Yeah, this is okay. Good, good, good. Anybody actually doing this?
I would be if I could figure out where I was going.
Yeah, I recorded and then I hit the submit it and it didn't do anything.
Let's see.
Oh, is this the audio recording?
Yeah, same thing. Submit's not doing anything for me either.
Did you type anything in the transcript?
No.
That's
okay. That's why.
Okay.
This is something a student.
If you type one word in the transcript section, just hello, that'll get us to where we need to go.
And it should ask you for your name and student ID after that.
And I just told them to use their birth date and first name. If all we need is one successful person to do this, and then we can see what it looks like from the teacher point of view.
I just sent in, Dave, so you might want to refresh the page.
Thanks, Nick. By the way, Nick, my group 3 was really impressed with your Google quiz set survey, and I said, well, we might be able to get Nick to do. So now I'm looking at a student example here. We might be able to get Nick to do so this is a submission from Mary. And so now you don't need to keep working on your submissions if you don't want to, because I've got one. Looks like there's 3 now. There's one from John. There's one from Nick. So see how I can scroll through each person's, and then I can listen to it.
My best friend is Cindy Edwards.
And if she wrote all that text there, I can also see that. Let's see what John did.
Well, check out mine. You're going to love it, Dave.
Okay, let's Nick's.
Anybody actually doing this? Anybody actually doing this?
Yeah, Nick.
I didn't. I was to hit play and you started talking and I was like, it's recording, Dave.
I love you like a brother. Now, just a couple of things. If all the text was here, then of course I can go into a breakout room with a student one-on-one and we can go through things together. I can give a grade in a book.
Let me just quickly answer one question which you might be having, which is that score 1%. Okay, so there are a couple of things with Paul's site. Like I said, he's a coworker of mine, someone I've worked with quite a bit, so I'm familiar with the problems he's been running into. And one of the things that Paul's had is teachers saying that they wanted some sort of metric which would allow them to quickly scan through if the student's done well or not. And so this score, I believe it's recognized word types divided by total word count times 100. So it's a score like that. And it's just an eyeball gauge. I've used it in regards to essay writing. So he has an essay rank on here. And it gives you an eyeball of, a low score is probably going to have a lot of grammatical or spelling mistakes on it. A high score is going to have less. It doesn't mean it's good essay. It just means it's
the thing about this is you can download all the data to your own computer if you want to.
Yeah. And one of the nice thing with Paul's site, because he's designed it with teachers in mind, these files will come down as these audio files will come down as, I believe, MP3s.
Yeah.
Which is the smallest data file for an audio. When you're doing the essay writing, they all come out as text files, which is really tiny in terms of data. So when you click download, it comes down relatively easily. Now he does have a video recording option where a number of teachers have been using Flipgrid, and it's basically the same as this audio, only with a video as well. And that, of course, that's going to take longer to download because the file sizes are bigger.
Just to add to that, I have taken the time to download and try to grade that way, but the files are separated. You have the text in one file, you have the audio in another. I have found doing it straight on the site and with the students so they can see their audio, they can see their text when we're, checking it together. The other thing, just worth noting, TOEFL students generally have a hard time getting up to the correct number of words for, say, a 1 minute. And they're always, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. And with the audio file, you can show, well, sure, you have enough time. You've left a gap here. Look at that gap that you've got. That's where you're not speaking. So there is time, actually. You have time to, so that's one thing that you can do for speaking with this audio version. And Nick probably has something he can share. I'm going to stop my share, Nick, and let you.
Okay, let me just get into. Let me just address a couple things. Again, I'm a good friend of Paul's, and I do need to make that clear because it is, I'm not getting any money from him, so.
I am. That's funny that you're not getting any money.
What are you doing right and I'm doing wrong? Okay, so one thing with Dave's, you might have seen at the top that Dave's said that his Premier account was going. Paul has started to charge for this because the amount of usage is now meaning that he's paying money to store. So, and he's trying to find the right price tag. So there's still, and it's very approachable. So what I would recommend if you're interested in this, type in this teacher tools onto Facebook, and Paul's got a group for this service, and he's pretty good about answering questions. But let me just show you, let's go here with Megaku reading, because I haven't used this one at all. Let's see here. This is a written report. Okay, so we'll go into this written report very quickly. Actually, no, I'm going to make a new one. So a written report, one of the questions that came up is how can you simulate test taking conditions? One of the conditions in test taking with TOEFL is timing. And so, you give yourself like OYJ, OTJ 1. Okay, prompt here. I don't need to see that. So word and time limits, you can set a minimum word count and a maximum word count. One thing keeping in mind with maximum word count is that score that's coming out is dividing the recognized word against maximum word possible. So you're going to get very low scores if you set it at 1,000 and students are all writing 200 words or less. On the other hand, if you don't care about that score, which I haven't, I tend to leave it at the max. Okay. Time limit. You can set a time limit, and what happens with the time limit. So for example, TOEFL, it's 30 minutes to write 300 words or more. So you can set the time limit. Once they reach the time limit, they cannot type anymore. One thing that I am very, very, very happy about is copy and paste. Students will be permitted to copy and paste text, disabled. This does not eliminate Google Translate use, but it makes it less convenient. With this, it is impossible for a student to type a Japanese essay into Google Translate and then copy and paste the English over here. What they could do is do that and then type it in, but it's much less convenient and therefore does eliminate some of that.
They probably missed the time limit too, right? Because that would be. Yeah, yeah.
And then finally with check grammar, this is a grammar check that is performed after the essay. And let me just, I'll show you quickly what it looks like so you can see what that. So I'm just going to quickly, as with Google Docs, you can always preview what it looks like by going into the eyeball. And if I go in and let's start, as you can see, there's a timer here. Every time I type a word, you see that the word count is increasing, so they can see their word count increasing in real time. Every time I type a word, I love OTJ, hello. Okay, so we've got 3 sentences here. Obviously, the first one is a fragment. Okay, when I submit, there we are, Nick 1, And now if I, sorry, I'm getting all these bad. Okay, now you see how there's this one here and it says possible spelling mistake. So this is what the teacher sees. The students don't see this, the teacher will see this afterwards. And you set that, the students can see this afterwards. You would set that in the parameters. So let's just see if I can get out of. So getting back to what it looks. Getting back to what the project looks like. When you're setting it up, you can set a minimum word count, a maximum word count, time limit, and then check grammar. And then you can either decide that the students see their score and corrections, which is the grammar check, or they only receive a has received. Okay, so this is something that has been very useful for me. It is a paid subscription now. That's been something that's been a necessity for Paul this year. And so that's something to keep in mind.
Those are two ways to deal with the speaking section and the writing section.
Yeah. In terms of writing, one of the nice things with Paul's system is that it gives you an eyeball of things like how many words they wrote, etc. So again, it's one of the problems that I've dealt with this semester. This isn't exclusive to test taking. It's more a general problem, is dealing with the bulk of data that is now all on a screen. So whereas I used to have a folder I've got to check through these sheets, now it's all on a screen. And so anything that kind of gives me sort of, I've got to spend more time here, or this student is performing low, add an eyeball on a spreadsheet is much more necessary this semester than it has been before.
Hi.
Teresa.
Hi. Paul Rain is giving a presentation at 2 p.m. today on the teacher tools.
Yeah.
The link?
Is that on OTJ?
No.
Yes, it is.
Is it on OTA?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I just looked it up.
In that case, I highly recommend attending it. He's doing some wonderful work. And
the topic is building and using digital tools.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So you're gonna get it right from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
But these are ways that we use it for testing. So this is good for the writing and the speaking. And what I really like about it is just having everything in one place, and I can just toggle through each student's example real quick.
Well, one other thing I have to say, I've realized that to get through this, and test taking would be one that falls into this category heavily, building up your spreadsheet skills is becoming more of a necessity. You know, so just being able to sort through a large amount of data quick. For example, I'm not sure how many of you have dealt with like VLOOKUP, so vertical lookup and if error, etc. But I found out how, for example, if you have a class list, you put out a Google form and it comes on a spreadsheet. The way the data comes to you, you have to go visually through to see if someone turned it in, because you won't see who didn't turn it in. Because Google Forms is only recording submissions, not submissions. But if you put it onto a spreadsheet, there's a way to actually do that. And it took a little bit of time to sort that out. So, and that's a little bit longer an explanation.
As I mentioned earlier, Nick, the group 3 members really liked your work about the Google Doc, or the Google spreadsheet, the Google form, the Google quiz, and I suggested that maybe you can do a comprehensive presentation at some point in time in the next few weeks on OTJ for folks that be interested.
I'd be willing to. I'm actually working on a paper with Bagok on that one. So anyway,
I think we're pretty much wrapped up for today. We couldn't obviously cover everything, but we do thank everybody who came and left, and everybody who's still here. Thank you for coming and participating. And
John ESL Hedwig,
Yes.
just want to personally thank you. A few years ago at a OTJ, it's not an OTJ, a conference, one of the conferences, you gave me your Vote America. I see your T-shirt, and said thanks. I got registered for the second time through all the. So thanks for all your work getting us to vote this time around. So.
Yeah, I thought I'd wear this shirt today just as an advertisement.
No,
I
it
don't know
reminded me of you, and so thanks.
As a
for all
Canadian, I don't know who you're voting for, but I certainly hope that you get rid of the president that you have.
that. Well, I think the big thing is making people know that, make people understand that absentee ballots is no longer as daunting a process as it had been. Thank you very much for your help that way.
Yeah, yeah. I put a note in chat. Most times I can save the chat myself personally, but today it's been disabled by whoever's the host.
Yeah.
So please make sure that you guys save the chat and post it someplace, since all the links are there.
Yes, we'll do, and we'll try to follow Jose's lead on that. He said hopefully Adam will be able to haul out those links. I'm not sure how it's all going to work, but I will save it.
Can I have a question? Sorry.
Sorry, Elizabeth. Yes. What's up?
Yeah, sorry. These sessions are being recorded.
Yes.
Will we have access to them at some place?
Yes, for a small fee of no. No, they're all being posted to an OTJ special YouTube channel, and that link will be probably posted pretty soon, if not already. So I'll make sure that it gets up on OTJ soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, thanks for joining in today. It's kind of.
No, thank you. I learned so much from this session today. It's amazing.
Oh, cool.
I couldn't take notes fast enough.
No.
Will this be a private, I assume not private YouTube channel, so.
Public. I think it's public. I posted a video the other day. I made it public, so.
Okay. One thing that I'm having a lot of trouble with is ads showing up in the middle of the thing. I don't care if they're at the beginning, because you can just wait and
right. YouTube
wait 3 seconds and click on it. But sometimes you get ads put in, and I don't think it's the person who's actually posted the video who put the ad there. So I don't know exactly how.
Is that a monetize issue? Is that something that if you say to monetize a video, it automatically does it?
I don't know exactly.
Automatically doing to you?
Again, John, if you'd like to pay a subscription fee, we can eliminate those ads. No,
yeah, well, I'm assuming if I go with the pay for the YouTube upgrade, then all those ads go away. But I haven't decided.
It's so annoying to pull the rug out. I mean, what annoys me with those ads is when I turn on YouTube to listen to music.
Yeah,
you get like an old classical. Listening to